How do y'all feel about players, ex-players specifically, in their platforms like Gilbert Arenas, Paul George? No, we're gonna
It's
get
cool.
It's cool.
How do we? It should exist for sure. Like it's cool that like it's a variety of now. It's not just Escape Bayless of the world. Like it's cool that there's those opportunities. You see people like JJ Redick, Gil, who like come up and have really good shows. Not all of them are so successful. I think a lot of times I think players think it's easier than it is, and we see some shows because of it because they think it's just like yapping on a mic.
I'll say it
but like
right
it's
now.
a very
I'll say it right now. The worst player podcast I've ever seen in my entire life. I love him. Favorite player in the league, Trae Young's podcast.
Everybody
every
hates
time,
Trae's
and I'm like,
pod,
I
bro.
learned nothing. The way he talks, I just can't wrap that in my head and find pure entertainment from that. But overall, like, there's a lot of players who do it right. Most of the time, players do it right. It's just like a few who's just like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah, like Paul George is like people. Those guys at Wave know what they're doing, so like they put them in a position to succeed. Some of the ones that do independently, and like, you know, 'cause it takes a lot of effort to run a show and make it good. Like I always tell people, like the main thing with our show is like we just try really hard in every single detail. The players don't be doing that because they think it's shit sweet. It's just like a side gig to make a lot of money. So a lot of the shows are ass because of it. But it's good overall for the landscape that they have those platforms.
Yeah, it gets real funny because like every player comes on and they're like, oh, like the media, like you guys just be like you guys just talk, you guys make up narratives. And it was so funny seeing specifically like Draymond Green and his podcast. And like, because throughout the playoffs last year, like it was very cool. Like game would end and Draymond would have a podcast up and he would give you insights on like everything that was going on. And that was very cool. As soon as the summer came and there was no more basketball, he goes on the live podcast and he was like, oh yeah, like Steph wasn't able to be like the alpha dog in the locker room, and like KD had to teach him how to win, all this type of stuff. And it's like, as soon as you start realizing that like you have to be consistent and you have to like figure out what topics to do and formulate like a content plan, then it gets kind of scary because you can't just like lean on the game, which is the benefit of having like a player-led podcast, is that like they can obviously like say stuff and tell stories that like none of us would ever know. Yeah. But once the finals ends and everybody like that finals dip hits, now you have to start being creative. And I think a lot of players, it's kind of hard for them to like be creative immediately. And so like you really have to work for that.
I told Roy Hibbert last night that I hated the Trae Young podcast too when he was on the podcast. But he told
What's his channel like? Is it good?
He's growing. It's good so far. He's growing as a reactionary creator. But he said that he told us that it's in like these contracts, like when they sign on to
agencies,
their agents. Yeah, when they sign on to the agent. No, for players, just players in general,
like players looking at agencies and stuff like that. When they're looking for agents, whatever agency they're with, they're looking for like a podcast, content creation division. So like when they get on now, like they're using avenues like podcasting, YouTube, and streaming. They see that as another thing that agencies should have ready for them when they sign there.
Yeah, and they're right. Like, that should be a value add that brings, like, it's a huge opportunity for players. Like Paul George probably gave himself a second win that's going to last 10 years after he retires with the show now. Like that's going to be so huge for him. He doesn't even realize it yet. Like his podcast is legit going to be humongous. Like look at the Kelsey brothers. They're incredibly famous now. Like if you do it right, the ceiling for a player-led pod is insane. And there's a high floor because people want to hear a player. But like those middle tier ones that just like aren't particularly entertaining, aren't trying very hard, there's going to be a lot of those that come out over the years and just like don't go anywhere. And I feel like we're going to see like a big burst of them that kind of dies out over time.
Yeah, I feel like the thing with players too that is important, I've heard so many times, JJ Redick, you know what I'm saying, he's top dog when it comes to this shit. He says that NBA players specifically, as an athlete, you have to have irrational confidence. Mm-hmm. And from what I see, some of them just like have irrational confidence to the point to where they can't be real with themselves to having what it takes when it comes to just doing this type of stuff. So it's like some of the worst. Another like terrible podcast that I've seen is like RJ Hampton. He had a podcast. I don't know anymore. He's a great.
We're just those slugs.
He's a cool player, but it's just like stuff like that. It's like okay, you need to know your.
Never getting RJ Hampton on the show.
Fuck.
But I do hate the ones that hot take hunt because we didn't talk about that. But since we're talking about the hot take hunters now, I want to bring them up.
Yeah, I was just damn, bruh. I was gonna say. Y'all
Nah,
like James
I like what it originally was. I don't want to say he fell off, but I think what they were saying is starting to apply. We're getting to the damn. I gotta upload every week. Yeah, I gotta upload twice a week. All right, and I ain't gonna lie, Bobo sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Sue Thompson, 10 points. You're a fraud. Like I ain't gonna lie. Like they're starting to see why people do it, and I think there's gonna be a pushback. I'll go a step further than dive down. There's gonna be a wave of NBA players. I'm sorry, that's gonna start calling out people that do podcasts and think that's like against culture at some point because they gonna hate that shit.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know what it is. It's because the show's owned by Underdog now, so there's a lot of corporate mandates and a lot more people cooks in the kitchen that require you to do certain things. Draymond, his podcast is set up that he can just like take hiatus however he wants.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's not the case with Gil's Arena, and they need to have a certain schedule, and that he can't just like do whatever he wants. So you got to fill some time.
It's that,
They
it's
like him
that,
every
but also at the same time though, and I think it's very like apparent when you hear players talk about other players, like NBA players just think differently about like their brain is just wired differently. So this is the same reason why like if you ask any NBA player that played from 2000 to 2011, they're like, you don't understand. Like Kobe's the greatest of all time. Like you just won't get it, right? Like you weren't lacing them up with me, and like they're all just it's super weird. And so I think like when a lot of them get on here, I think that some of them are hot takey. I think that the thing that Gilbert said a couple of days ago, because he kind of walked it back when like the Asar Thompson thing, I honestly think that he had like forgot what his career was like, and he was just like, no, like I was a hooper, and like I like scored like 25 a night, and it's just like wired differently. I don't think that was necessarily like hot take. Like
I also think these players don't. You know, we talked about having like media background, and part of that comes with like knowing how to operate when a mic's in front of your face, knowing how people are going to react to things you say because you do it a lot. These guys don't have that background, so they don't realize if I say Asar Thompson's not like that, the whole internet's gonna get mad at me, you know, because they don't go into it thinking about it that way. It's just them being them. They think it's just chill, and then there's a big magnifying glass on the show this big, and it takes a while for them to realize that.
Well, let me play this. Just I know everybody knows, but
and this is just me, but it is reality. You're 20 turning 21, averaging 10. You're not in my future. As a GM, you're about to be a 21-year-old rookie. You're so far. I mean, if I'm going to have him as a defensive player, okay, cool. But I mean, if I'm going to make him like a cornerstone, like he is the cornerstone of my future, who's 21 right now?
But I mean, shit. Think about it though. If from what you just said, if he's averaging 10 as a first-year player, that means he's going to do pretty good for later on.
Nah.
Once he gets used to the league.
Name me the best 20-year-old in the world right now.
In the world or NBA?
In the NBA. And this is just me.
yeah, he did walk it back because he
Luka
claims
Doncic
that
and
he
Trae Young
forgot.
people would think everybody got to be a star from day one.
Yeah. It's sad. What I'm not gonna lie. Like I'd even say to a degree, like how the Tatum in 2018 thing done did for a lot of this generation, where if you're not him off the dome, people forgot what the word development truly means. Because I'll even say there's some people that bring up develop, give them time in certain debates. But I think that people also like think that it's a 2 or 3 year thing. It's a 5 to 6 year thing. Like it's genuinely a lot of time for these players to develop. Obviously, I think we all agree whether it was hot take Hunty or not. The take is just not that bright. I hope nobody's gonna gaslight into a he's played thing. I mean, I've thought there's endless comparisons. We could do endless comparisons, but the most damning one, the most one-to-one one I can think of is fucking Kawhi Leonard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the dude averaged 13 in his third year as a Finals MVP, and let alone his first year, he averaged 8 points. So I don't see the hype on that at all. If you want to say that he's not a guy that I'm choosing over Cade Cunningham, like maybe he didn't finish a sentence, then maybe I'll go with it. But if that's the end of your sentence, nah, he's drunk.
And I also think it's one of those things where like you're up there talking and you have a thought and you just put your foot in your mouth and you just got to talk yourself out of it and just like keep rolling with it. Like, that's 100% what he did. Like he just was talking about, I think what he meant was like Asar is not like a future superstar, but nobody fucking said that. So like he's arguing against a take that nobody's saying, and he probably didn't mean that like a star can't be a part of your like rotation. He probably was like, he's not going to be my second star. Nobody has those expectations right now, so he's just like arguing a point doesn't exist. So now he looks crazy because everyone's like, "Where are you getting this from?"
I think he's gonna catch himself in a lot of trouble, which is fine. But like they literally live stream every single day, and I have this take as well about Stephen A. Like Stephen A. gets cooked on the timeline every single day. But like put yourself in his position, like literally on live national TV every single day, multiple shows, like multiple hours a day. You're about to fuck up and say some dumb shit at some point. Like I'm sorry, man. I can't say the same thing over and over and over. I gotta be creative, and that's what makes Stephen A. Stephen A.
No, it's
same
true.
thing with Gil,
And I'll go a step further. I had an internship, not to y'all internship. Y'all got lucky. I had a CBS internship, ABC internship, and they do not give a fuck about basketball. But even there, I quickly realized, bro, one thing about Stephen A. compared to us, he doesn't have time to do the long-winded take. He doesn't have time to stutter. And most importantly, he can't walk anything back unless it's like that quick. So if he says something, y'all, you can't really take it back till tomorrow. And I don't know about y'all, but one thing the cancel culture Twitter thing has never given a fuck about is an apology. My God, he could come on tomorrow and be like, yo, I'm not going to lie. I was tired. I was completely wrong. It is what it is. People are gonna go to the tweet before that had the clip of him saying the dumb shit and still quote it. So it doesn't matter.
100%.
But I think the thing that kills me though is, and I know somebody's gonna say, "Oh, Omar, you claim of not being consistent." Gil said what he said on the 12th. On the 1st, he made a comparison of Chet and Wemby, saying that they're not on the same playing field. You kind of got to wait for Wemby because once he gets to a different age, as he ages, he'll be on a whole different level. But which is just counter to what he literally was just saying. And then
not necessarily, right? He said if you're 20, 21 and you're averaging 10 points, you're not in my future. Wemby is 19, averaging more than 10 points. So like if we're just going off of that, like it's not necessarily that. And like I do also
That makes it worse, low-key.
Also, but we all agree though. Like listen, we all agree. It was just a bad take. It was a bad take. And like Biso says, if you like Stephen A. is going to say a lot of stuff sometimes that he's eventually gonna have to walk back. And so you see now what he's doing on his podcast, where he's just a horny old man because he can't take every single day spending 7 hours of doing serious NBA football stuff. He said, I have to take 2 hours to be horny. I need to give myself a break. I gotta give myself a break. Right? Look at all of his clips from his podcast. I'm not even joking. It's all about being freaky, all that type of stuff. Like
no, because what you're saying is right. Because Gil, even that other day, hold on, let me play the clip. Because I didn't really hear this one. I just heard the discourse around it. Mm-hmm. But apparently what he said about the
thing either.
The way he said about the Europeans was crazy.
Oh, that was
about what
that was uncalled for.
What did he say?
Before we
got clip that.
Before we play it, this is the part where he doesn't realize the platform he has, because this is a joke that like somebody on Twitter would make. That like, if I said this is a joke, like it wouldn't be crazy, but Gil being Gil can't say this type of shit, and players don't realize the difference there, that they're not just normal people talking to their friends. Like you can't be saying that as a former player.
Yeah.
So look, the Gobert choke was questionable but defensible because Dre was coming to protect Clay. This latest incident left many people scratching their heads. So just, what do y'all think about the situation? And how do you react to this video?
He looked like he about to say something wild.
I know what Dre doing. He's taking care of these Euros one at a time.
Oh my
He waited for everybody to laugh with him too. That makes it so much worse.
And you choking and slapping them back. I get it, baby. Do your thing.
Yeah, that's one of those.
I think the do your thing. I think the do your thing is great.
So anyone with me?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
It's one of those, like, he obviously is not dead ass, but it's like.
He dead.
But that's funny because like, at the end where he's like,
well,
the telling Draymond do your thing, right? Like that's why.
That's the part.
Ridiculous.
That's the part. Yeah. The first part, I swear I've heard like not just example Donovan. I can imagine him saying a joke like that. Like he sees a Euro, he's like that's like a light joke. But with him from a former NBA player,
don't put this on me.
Look, I can imagine that shit. But when you're a former NBA player and you finish it with the keep going, that's when you fuck up. Like you can't be saying that shit from a position of power in the media where people look at you and imagine you're a figure of importance in the space. You can't be saying that shit.
Yeah, hell no.
Only people who can get away with that is Cam and Mace, and that's because people don't take them seriously.
Yeah,
exactly.
You have to be a guy
It's a
that
messenger.
people don't take seriously.
Yeah, and I
it's
think
100%
I don't even know.
messenger.
I don't even know who they're backed by, but you definitely can't. Not being backed by like the people that they're backed by and supposed to be backed by.
Well,
And he never. Yeah, well, no, I'm talking about Cam and Mace. Cam and Mace are backed by Underdog too.
Oh,
Oh well, shit.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
They definitely are.
yeah. Well, that's different. Gil's like owned by Underdog. That show was like Underdog production. I think Cam and Mace are just sponsored by Underdog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to Underdog, man. What else they trying to
Maybe
produce,
we can't.
right?
We can say. I'm about to say we can say whatever we want to say. So, we can go and just start saying random stuff.